my software developer, one of my software developers that I hired during Send the Money was an amazing soul from Marrakesh in Morocco.
Okay.
Probably the most amazing soul I ever worked with. Very selfless. The first CTO I worked with was like lineage from Lebanese. Again, probably one of the amazing soul I ever worked with. I've been privileged. I think entrepreneurship has opened me up to thinking from a place of value. I'm bringing people together who aligns with that value.
Mm.
And I think maybe that's the new mindset as Black people that we need to begin to have. And understand that when Europeans came, the French went to the Francophone African country. They know that the only way development can happen is to have a commonality of language and purpose.
Yeah.
And so they forced French in that. In the Anglophone part of Africa, they force English language in us. So instead of us continually remind ourselves of our different tribes, maybe there is a blessing in that. I'm totally wrong on this, but maybe there is a blessing. Because something powerful came out of Nigeria, and that is Pidgin English.
Yep.
And you will be surprised today that the Pidgin English is growing so powerful that even when you go to North Africa, you'll be surprised people speak Pidgin English.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there is a blessing in that horrible history. And so as an entrepreneur, the way my mind is programmed to function is to learn from mistake and not dwell on that mistake and pick the lessons of what works and what doesn't work, right? When we build a product, we'll say, validate the product, test the product, reiterate, repeat.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe we can bring that mindset to how we want to build Africa. Maybe we can validate Africa as a product. Maybe we can then test it. And so that's why you see that younger people who looks like me today doesn't want to be bound by borders. People like my father, my brothers, and that's why I use the word from age 45.
Yeah.
They will never subscribe to this.
Seriously?
That's the truth. And you can do your social experiment in this. And
Wow.
there's a reason for that. Because in those days, people take advantage in a very strong sense of affinity.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Right? And that very strong sense of affinity, let's face it, is only one thing people in that age bracket hold dear.
No, see, it's I don't know if it's genetic, but people like, you mentioned that people like to belong to a community. Okay. Before the city-states and countries, and this is why it was possible for slavery to have thrived in Africa for a long time, starting with us in Africa, and then the Arab trade, which was there before the Europeans came, okay? But it was easy to capture slaves in Africa because there were not many cities. They're small villages without solid security. So people from bigger places, towns, in quotes, can easily pick up some strays. And yeah, so I read this book by who was this great 14th century Arab, not African. His surname is Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun, yes, about Asabiyyah. Yeah, that's Asabiyyah is a word that depicts about something communal. It's a word that Arab people like to talk about the tribal lineage and things like that. Yeah. Well, you check out. There's a book called that Asabiyyah. It's a very interesting concept. So see, people like to be a member of a community, and that's a long.
And absolutely, I'm not a bit mindful of our time as well. I'm not saying people should leave their subscription to what their affinities are. Where I'm saying it,
people need to be consciously change it.
Absolutely. So to me, I think people must be able to have the power to subscribe to what works.
Yes.
And unsubscribe for what doesn't work. If I have a subscription today with a particular Wi-Fi broadband provider, if I don't like that service, I'll change to another provider.
Yeah.
And so to sum up my message is to say, if something has not served us well till this very moment,
yeah, we'll change it.
Maybe it's time for us to unsubscribe from that provider.
Yeah.
And then subscribe to a new provider. And
good.
And what is that new provider? That's a new provider where we then need to make peace with those horrible histories. You can see now, you've just validated a social experiment.
Yeah.
Right? By going into a bit of that history, somebody who is not mentally and emotionally on a very higher plane would take some things personal from that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that will open a whole lot of conversation. Right?
Oh, see.
And
okay, finish. Sorry.
And that's what I'm trying to say. In times of saying, whether you're North African, I love you as a brother, as a sister, I love you. Whether you're Zulu, I love you as a brother. Whether you're a Kenyan, wherever you are in Africa, I love you, my brother, because in the mind of the world, we are all compressed together into one identity.
Yeah.
And when the economic opportunities are being shared on global stage, it's shared according to that. So when company begins to do their internalization strategy, and you must have come across this, they'll say North America, South America, and then they'll probably have Europe. They don't have EMEA region, but then they'll and then just see how that they group it. They didn't say I'm he, Africa, Europe, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Okay? There is something they're reminding us every time. Every of those things are a reminder of how economic opportunities have been explored.
Okay.
And every single economic power in the world, whether startups, whether scale-ups, they will explore their internalization strategy based on this.
Yeah.
It's becoming norm. They will not say internalization strategy for South Africa, for East Africa, for West Africa. No. They put all of us together in one single economic bracket.
Yeah.